Hi. Yeah, I think we're good. Anyway, so a couple of things before anything else happens. My allergies are kicking my butt today. I can barely breathe. So if I'm like, it's just because I'm trying to oxygenate myself. And my city's been having some weird things this summer. I think the system is just kind of old and it's getting overloaded with all of the ACs. So nearly daily our power flashes. It'll go out just for a second and then there's like an explosion in the distance somewhere, as like a transformer blows. So if I suddenly just disappear, chances are my power went out. I hope that doesn't happen. It didn't happen yesterday. So let's have some fun today. Um, First of all, I have to say hello to Anjanette. She emailed me and asked me to make sure that I am asking your question out loud before I answer it. For those who are watching who maybe can't get into chat, that happens quite a bit. And so I appreciate that reminder and I will make sure to do that. So hello, Anjanette. And anybody else who's watching who is not in chat for one reason or another. Yeah. So let's have some fun today. Okay, so today you really just need the same things you used last week, except you don't need any color wheels today. But you will need some paper, cardstock, whatever it was that you painted on last week. I want you to use the same colors you used last week. You can use some new ones too, but I want you to use at least start with the same color combinations as last week, because that's going to help kind of solidify some of these concepts when you see it with colors that you're familiar with. But then you'll also want some white. And the reason I need you to use white today is because when we start mixing all three colors, we start getting chromatic blacks. We get very dark mixtures, and sometimes it can be really hard to see what color you got because it's going to be very, very dark. So that's what the white is for, just to give you a better idea of how those colors all mix together. It's, you can use these colors without white, certainly when you're doing a painting, but just for our purposes today for learning, I want you to use a little bit of white. Let's see. So I'm going to try, there's so much that I want to say and do and tell you and nerd out on today. So if I end up like just going way too fast, which I may, please yell at me and tell me to back up. Tell me to clarify anything that you might have missed. Because I'm really just going to kind of be like, again, it's just the information that I have that's just like, all of it wants to come out right now. So I'm going to try not to be too crazy with it. So let's just go ahead and jump into it. Now, last week we made our color wheels and, just are things like this. And so what we did was we made these little landscapes just as an idea to see how the colors work together and what was the point of making the little landscapes? Just for the fun of it, I guess. There was probably something else. But what we're going to do today is start making more complex colors. So like all of this is just made with two colors plus white. So the sky, it's blue and yellow plus a little white. Red and yellow plus a little white. Red and blue plus a little white. Oh yeah, it was to demonstrate harmony. How we got harmony by using just three colors. But what we're going to do today is make more complex colors. So complex colors are colors that go beyond mixing two colors. So a complex color is going to include all three of our primaries in various amounts. Might be a lot of red, some yellow, a teensy weensy bit of blue, or any combination thereof. So a complex color is going to contain all three of our colors. So I didn't spend a lot of time doing a bunch of landscapes this week, but I did do one just to kind of demonstrate using these exact same colors and doing another little landscape. But I felt like it wasn't going to be the best way to demonstrate it because, you know, here we've got nice, whoops, I'm dropping all my stuff, nice vibrant colors that really demonstrate the harmony. But then once we start making the colors more complex, everything gets really kind of muted down and a little darker, a little more boring, because my goal in making this was every single brush stroke had to contain all three colors in some amount. So these are the exact same color palettes here. You can certainly go through and redo your little landscapes if you want with the more complex mixtures, but I felt like I wanted to take a break from the little landscapes and just do some things that were a little bit more experimentative and fun. So yeah, like I said here, these are all three of the same colors in both of these paintings, and they're all utilizing these colors. So just to give you an idea of how wide of range you can get with three colors and white. I mean, you really can make just about any color under the sun. So instead of doing the little landscapes, I'm going to show you what I did, and I thought it was really fun. I did it on a couple of different wheels, and then I'll do one with you guys. So I was trying to figure out a way that I wanted to go through these colors. You know, I initially thought to make a chart, but it was a lot of work. Well, it wasn't a lot of work, but it was more work that I wanted to do, and really there's very little variation in there. But again, that is just these colors. So from there, I just started mixing colors, and I did it on a couple of sheets. And so I kind of came up with this, and this was just, you know, picking up different mixtures of my colors every time I went back for more paint. Once again, it is this color wheel here. And I did another one, the exact same color wheel. So these little squares, I felt like it was a lot of fun. It was very free. It was not a lot of thought went into it, but it was exciting. So we will do some of that today. But what I wanted to show you was I also did the same thing on this color wheel, and they really are fairly similar, right? They're not too far off from each other, and that's the one that made this painting. But the little squares that I got they're not quite as vibrant. I wasn't able to get real vibrant colors. Like in this one, I got much more vibrant colors. And I hope that this one kind of helps you see, okay, what am I trying to say without barfing too much information all over you? One question I get asked a lot. What is the best color for skin? What colors should I mix to paint skin? My white balance, I feel like, is a little off on this. Let me fix my white balance real quick. There's not a single answer for what color should I use to make skin. But if you look at this, I hope that you can see that this would be a pretty good start. If I were painting a portrait, I could find a use for just about every single color on this palette here for skin tones. Yes, that includes green, that includes purple, that includes blue. All of these colors can be used in skin tone. Not to mention, you know, trees and rocks and sky and, you know, whatever. In fact, I showed you guys this a while ago, my little 1 hour portrait that I did. Remember, I showed you this. I said all I did was I grabbed, I think I used black too. I used a red, a yellow, a blue, and some black. Not in her face, I didn't use black, but, and I did this in an hour, and she looks so much more splotchy in the camera there than she looks in real life. But the colors I used on her skin is just red, yellow, and blue. And I think I used alizarin, yellow oxide, and ultramarine. I can't remember exactly, but I feel like that's about right. And so that's kind of what we're doing here with this today, talking about the more complex colors. And that's all I had to say. So I'll see you guys next week. Just kidding. I don't really know what else. My brain is not functioning properly right now. Did I show you all of these? I did. Okay. So, shout out questions as you have them, guys. I'm a little less organized today. I'm sorry. Let's do one of those like I did with the little colored squares so that you can kind of get an idea for how to do it. You can just like sit in front of the TV and you don't have to pay too much attention to it. Just do it and have fun. I'm going to let you guys pick which one we're going to do, okay? Sorry. Okay, so I have this one. Not terribly in love with it, but also those colors, they look pretty close to the ones on the other sheets. Maybe we should pick something that's quite different. What about this one? Should we do this one with the quinacridone? Ooh, this one could be interesting. The one with the Payne's Gray. Or this one could be interesting. Which one should we do, guys? You tell me. The Payne's Gray one? Ooh, 2 votes for that. Okay. Now, you do not have to use the same colors I'm using. I want you to pick one of your color wheels that you did, the one that you like the best, or maybe even the one that you like the least. Just pick one of your color wheels that you did, and I want you to do what I'm going to do here, okay? Because the reason I don't want you to just follow along what I'm doing is because if you made a color wheel and you're like, wow, that's really incredible, I didn't know those colors would make that, and then you abandon it to follow along with my colors, you're going to miss out on a lot of learning. Because it'll be exciting when you start seeing those colors all mixed together that you used last time. Okay. No reason. You don't have to have the colors. I want you to use your own colors. This is, again, this isn't about you doing what I do. This is about you learning and experimenting on your own. Besides, even if you have the exact same colors I do, you're going to mix them different than I do, and you're not going to end up with the same colors that I do. And I know how some of you get frustrated with that. You know, if you're using the same colors, I hear that all the time. I use the exact same colors and I just could not get that color. That is not the point. The point here is just kind of the experimenting. I just want you to surprise yourself. All right, so Payne's Gray, alizarin, and yellow oxide. Where is it? There it is. One other thing, I know a lot of you are really chomping at the bit to kind of go off on your own and use colors that aren't primaries, non-red, yellow, and blue. And that's great. I'm glad that you're excited to do that. For right now, I only want you using red, yellow, and blues. And I know Payne's Gray is kind of a stretch. It's not really blue, but it'll work as a blue. We will have plenty of time later when we can experiment and really just get crazy with the colors we put in the wheel. But for now, I just want you to see how a simple red, yellow, and blue can do anything you want it to do. All right. I'm going to get my number 8 bright just because a smaller brush will allow me to make smaller squares. It doesn't matter. So, you know, later tonight, if you want to make some more color wheels and you want to just do that for fun, man, grab a purple, a green, a black, whatever, and just do it. But while you're doing like our assignments, please just use red, yellow, and blue. All right, here's our paper and my bright and my water. I need a paper towel. My goal here, I am not going to wash my brush a single time. I might wipe it on my paper towel if it gets too gunked up, but I'm not going to wash it. So I'm going to start out, let's see, I'll zoom in just a little bit closer. I am going to start out with, I'm going to start with my Payne's Gray and yellow oxide, and I'm just going to mix them however. I'm not trying to get a perfectly even mixture. I'm just starting with something. I want to be able to tell it's a mixture of the two. Now I'm going to get a little bit of my red, just a little bit. And I'm going to make a little square here, kind of mixing it on the paper. And it's just kind of a muddy grayish color. I'm going to grab a little bit of white. There, now it's a little bit lighter so I can kind of see the different tone of it. Now I'm just going to keep going from there. I think all across the top here, I'm going to stick to my Payne's Gray yellow mixture. Maybe this time I'll grab a little bit more of the alizarin. You analytical people, I'm calling you out on this because I'm one of you. And so this is something I have to watch too. Do not get hung up on trying to, you know, do this mixture or that mixture, or how much of this color am I using in relation to that color. See, I picked up a little more alizarin, a little bit more white. I just want you almost randomly grabbing colors. I'm just picking up alizarin and white at this point, just letting the yellow and black almost work their way out of my brush. See, there's still a little bit of it. I'm starting to get this kind of dusty pink color. See, those colors are still in there. I'm just not picking up any more. Just tiny little slices of alizarin, tiny little poke of white, just to lighten it up to the point where I can see my color mixtures. And it's just getting a little bit pinker as I go across. I tried to come up with like a different color chart or wheel that would be really simple to use, but give us a good variation in our colors, and I just couldn't. But I felt like this was almost a meditative process, just making these little squares. Still just picking up alizarin, getting some of that darker mixture off there. I know at this point it almost looks like that must be pure alizarin and white, but I'm just going to wipe my brush off. And remember, if I seem to be ignoring your question, I'm just not paying attention to chat. So ask when I come back, okay? So I'm just picking up alizarin here and white, and I wiped off everything else. And this should give you an idea. See how much brighter this is than that. So it definitely toned it a little bit. So that should kind of show you that, you know, when you're painting along, if you're like, I really want, let's say you're doing a portrait, just because I have one here, okay? Let's say you're doing a portrait and you're like, I want her to have like pink lips. I want her lips to be very pink. But you put some alizarin and white on there and you're like, okay, but I don't want her to look like she has cartoon lips. Lips, even pink lips, aren't that pink. How am I going to make it so they're not so neon pink? Well, now you know, grab a tiny bit of blue and a tiny bit of yellow and dampen that color down. Okay? That's funny, Deborah just said the last 4 to 5 colors would make great lipstick shades. And with the delay, I was saying that about painting lips right as she was typing them. So yeah, that illustrates that point. If it's too intense, grab a little yellow, grab a little blue. Don't just head for, I know a lot of people think brown. Well, I need to neutralize it. I'll put some brown in it. Especially like burnt umber can make it a little bit, I think burnt umber almost gives it that kind of fake, cartoony brown color. Black can change colors. Black makes red more purple. I don't want purple. I want the red. I just want it a little bit more drab. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. I still have the pink and white. Let's go into our alizarin. Well, I'm going into my alizarin and paints. It doesn't matter what colors you're going into. I'm just going into a different color here. I'm going to load up with that. And I'm going to get a tiny bit of yellow. And I'll mix it over here. I didn't pick up any extra white. I do kind of like to do this first square without white to see what it looks like at full saturation. And then I'll grab a little white. So that's the exact same mixture. I just picked up white. And see? That's going to lean a little bit more purple than our colors up here. Let's keep going with that. Back into my 2 colors. And a little more yellow. Bit of white. Oh, Mr. Moon just woke up. He's probably gonna, he's been walking on my keyboard lately, so he'll probably be over here momentarily trying to walk on my keyboard. That could almost be a good flesh color right there. Maybe just add a little bit more white to it. And again, all I'm doing is picking up yellow and white here. Just letting the other colors kind of naturally work their way out. The yellow oxide is a much stronger color than either alizarin or Payne's Gray, so it's becoming a bit more prominent, a little quicker than the alizarin did. And that almost looks like just solid yellow oxide with the white. But let me wipe off my brush really good. I just picked up yellow oxide and white, and there you can see what a big difference the pink and the black, or the Payne's Gray, made. So let's move on to our last one. And then we're just going to play. Right now I am kind of following a bit of a pattern, but we're just going to play. So I'm doing an even mixture of my red and my yellow. Tiny bit of my blue, just a tiny bit. And we'll put those here. Getting kind of a weird, muty orange. That's interesting. And a bit of white. Okay, let's keep going with that. So just like in the ones above, I'm just going to slowly start picking up a little bit more Payne's Gray all the way across. So yeah, this could make really interesting skin colors if you were doing a portrait. Really, you can grab any blue, red, and yellow and, you know, do skin tones out of them. And there's not, before anybody asks, there isn't one that's better for it than others. Every artist is going to have their own preference. Me, I really like ultramarine for a blue in portraits because it's very warm and it's just what I like. I like alizarin crimson because it's got kind of that pinky tone to it. And I like yellow oxide because it's not too vibrant and intense of a yellow. It's not so hard to control like cad yellow would be. But that's just what I prefer. That's not right or wrong. Excuse me. Mickey says, so what you're doing is making the initial color in 2 colors and then adding the third. No, the first square is all 3 of them. It's all 3. And then the second square is the same 3, but with a little bit of white. And then after that, I'm just picking up the changing color. So like here, I just picked up alizarin as I went, but I started with mostly Payne's Gray and yellow oxide. Here I started with mostly alizarin and Payne's Gray and I just picked up yellow. Here I started with mostly alizarin and yellow oxide and I'm just picking up Payne's Gray. Don't look for like a scientific process in it. I'm just doing what seems to make sense to me. I wiped off my brush. This is just Payne's Gray and white and that's simply so I can show you. You don't have to do that. It's just me simply showing you what that color looks like on its own without the other 2 colors in it. And see, it looks much cooler there. It's much more neutralized here. Okay, so now I've been through all of the colors. We can just kind of start playing. What I was doing here was really a 50-50 mixture. So here I did about 50% yellow, 50% Payne's Gray, 50% alizarin and Payne's Gray, and so on. But now I'm almost going to pick up at random. I'm going to come in here. I'm going to pick up yellow. I didn't clean off my brush. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to pick up some alizarin. I don't know how much, just some. A little bit of white. I need to wet my brush. All I'm doing from here on out is just picking up my colors really at random. My brush is going to get muddy and messy and that's okay. I just want to see the kind of variations I can get. Every time I go back for more paint, I just start in a different color. I pick up different colors. Maybe I'm going to pick up a lot of alizarin there, a tiny bit of yellow oxide. Let's see what happens here. Even vary the amount of white that you're getting. Sometimes, you know, pick up a ton of white. Sometimes don't pick up very much, if any, white. I'm going to try and make this one quite light. Yeah, that looks good. In this color scheme, I'm not getting very intense greens, which is interesting. But I think that's because of the warmth in the alizarin. If I were using like cadmium yellow, I'd get much more intense greens with that Payne's Gray, because Payne's Gray is so, so cool. Trying to get a bit of an orange color here now. Still haven't cleaned off my brush. All three of these colors exist on my brush. And I just want you to do this really until your page is filled up. Just fill that page up. If you have a little, method that you want to try out for mixing, start another page. It's really interesting when you get colors where you do get a lot of vibrant colors. Like, I want to do this one next with the quinacridone and everything, because I did get a fairly vibrant purple, and I get good oranges, and I get good greens. So this one will be an interesting one to do. Practice random, you guys. I know some of you, I say random and you like, I lose you. Because random is hard, man. I don't know why random is hard, but it is. It's hard for me too sometimes. But the more that I focus on being random, I've noticed, the easier it gets to be random. And that's why I say do something else while you're doing this. Sit down in front of the TV and put on a movie. Or, whatever. I don't want you really focusing on this too much. I want you to really pay attention to something else. That'll help you be a little more random. Right now, I'm focusing on talking to you guys. What I'm going to say, what I'm going to do next. Not putting a lot of time and energy into any of these squares. And so I'm doing a pretty good job of being random. But this color palette it's a little on the limited side, Getting some good browns. We're getting some good pinks and some grays, but really not much else. I wiped off my brush, and I'm going to get some yellow and just mix whatever was in my brush in there. It's a bit of a brighter, muted yellow. I'm going to do that again with alizarin. And then I think I'm going to move on from this one, because this one's just a little more limited than what I feel like is interesting to demonstrate for you. All right. And then once you do this, don't forget to label it. Just write down the colors that you used on it. Yeah, Gretchen says this is a wonderful way to get to know color potential, and it really is. But you know what else it does? It really helps you know your colors. And what I mean by that is it helps you understand which colors are transparent, which colors have really strong tinting abilities, which colors are really, really weak and easy to overpower. And I know, because I was trying to get like some oranges, and orange was a little challenging to get because the yellow oxide is so strong and it overpowers the alizarin crimson. Likewise, Payne's Gray, it looks like I used black in here, right? But look at how there's very few things in here that got overpowered by like if I were using Mars Black, because Payne's Gray is a very soft color. It's very easy to overpower. And if I were using Phthalo Blue, let's say, instead of Payne's Gray, I would have a really hard time getting any color other than a blue, because Phthalo Blue is so strong. And I just know that from mixing. So yeah, doing things like this will really give you an idea of which of your colors are strong, which ones are kind of weak, you know, which have good tinting abilities and which ones don't. So it's, my brother is texting me. Doesn't he know that I'm working? Just kidding. Which is why I think that I like to use ultramarine, because I can use it to get the nice dark shadows, but ultramarine is a very soft color, so it doesn't overpower. How do you reproduce a color if you do it randomly? Experience. You know, once you're really good at color mixing, as long as you know what colors you used, like, I'm pretty sure that if I sat down and tried to reproduce any of these colors, I mean, with just a little bit of trial and error, I would be able to, because I do a lot of color mixing. But also, it's like reproducing an exact color has never been something that I've been real hung up on. I don't mind variation in my colors. I'm okay if I never see the exact same color again. So I'm going to use the colors I made for this one. And I used magenta, phthalo blue. So here goes the phthalo blue. I'll get to demonstrate that one for you. And Hansa yellow light. Yeah, absolutely. Deb says that she keeps a separate book to record favorite mixes when she stumbles upon them. Absolutely. Yeah, Barbara, that was something that I thought about doing for this, and we may still do it at some point. So Barbara said that she likes to take like paint samples from like the hardware store and try to reproduce that color. And that is kind of an advanced color mixing thing. And I can definitely show you guys how to do that. And it's something you can challenge yourself to do, you know, here and there. But yeah, that's a really great way to learn color mixing. It can be frustrating because, you know, it is challenging, but, you know, anything that's challenging and difficult is going to be a good learning opportunity. So I'm just putting out my colors here. Yeah, Gretchen, and she says that knowing the root colors helps isolate the mixes. And it really does. And that's why I said, you know, as long as I know exactly what colors I used, I can figure it out. I can figure out the mixture. Okay. So here, I've got my red, yellow, and blue, and I know that quinacridone, it's got pretty good tinting strength. It's not one of those ones that will overpower anything though. Hansa Light Yellow is very transparent. It's quite a soft color. Phthalo Blue it can obliterate anything. So I do have to be careful with this one, or I'll just have like a palette full of blue dots. So let's go ahead and start on this one. And again, I'll run you through my process, but please remember that what I'm doing here, this isn't how it's done. This isn't the right way. This is just what I want to do. And you can do it any other way that you like. I like to take my two colors, mix it up so that I can see both colors. If I mix these two 50-50, it's going to be dark blue because the phthalo is so strong. So I'm ending up putting a little more quinacridone in so that I can see both colors. And I'm going to grab just a tiny bit of yellow and mix them here. And see how dark that is. And you can kind of see why we're using some white. Just picked up a little bit of white. Look at that, a nice muted kind of lavender. That's really nice, I like that. So I'm gonna keep going. I'm just gonna pick up yellow, a little bit of white. And I'm gonna go all the way across. See, nice earthy purples. Purple can be a hard one. You know, if you're able to mix purple, it may be too cartoony for your purposes. You may want it to be a little bit of a softer color. And just knowing that you throw a tiny bit of yellow in there and you can soften it up is really, really helpful. But also look, if you want it to have a really like almost a fantasy type skin color, that would be a good one for it. So just remember, always, the best way to make skin tone is with red, yellow, and blue. Any red, yellow, and blue you like. I do want to run through a couple other things with regards to the landscapes as soon as we're done with this color sheet. And I'm probably going to tear through this one pretty quick because I think you get the point. So there we are about. I'm going to do one more and then I'm going to wipe off my brush and just show you how that yellow looks on its own without the red and blue in there. The quinacridone is magenta, not the red quinacridone. All right, I wiped off my brush. A little bit of yellow on its own, a little bit of white, and there you can see the difference in vibrancy with the red and blue in it and without. And let's go now. I'm going to go into my yellow and quinacridone. Again, I just want to see both of the colors, see how much stronger the quinacridone is than the yellow. I have to add a lot more yellow to get away from the magenta. All right, tiny bit of blue. Tiny bit of white. There, see, we're getting some more obvious oranges. I had a really hard time getting anything that was orange in the last one. I still have to be really careful with the blue here because, again, it's just such a strong color. See that? I barely touched the blue and it just took over. So that's why I personally wouldn't use phthalo blue if I were doing a portrait. It's just too hard to control. A little bit more. And this is probably going to be almost straight phthalo blue at this point, yeah. But look at that color. Isn't that beautiful? Just starting to get a little bit kind of jewel tony. See how long it took for the yellow to take over everything. But the blue took over really in the first square. So if you weren't aware that phthalo was like that before, you would certainly be aware that phthalo is like that now. Wiped off my brush, a little phthalo and white, just to show you the color difference there without the yellow and quinacridone. And I'm going to go into the phthalo and the yellow. Again, tiny bit of phthalo, much more yellow. Little quinacridone. That's a pretty rich green. That's a really interesting green. It looks really flat in the camera, but in person, that's quite jewel toned. I really like that. Just my alizarin and some white. Oh, my alizarin took over pretty quick. Let's do that just one more time. I don't want my alizarin to take over that quick. I feel like I must not have had my mixture properly because the alizarin's not that strong. Oh, I don't know. Maybe it is. Maybe it's stronger than I thought. Yeah, alizarin must be stronger than I thought. So once I finish with this, I would really just keep going and see what other kind of variations I can get. Fill up the entire page. Let's do an alizarin white square at the end for comparison, and then we're going to move on. So just alizarin and white. Okay. Give me your questions while I prepare for the next part. Good. I hope this one is fun. I kind of had a sinking feeling that this one would be a little more boring. It wouldn't be as exciting as last week. So I hope that it is. I mean, I had fun with it. Sitting and that's what I did yesterday, man. I just sat and made those little squares. I made a lot more than what I showed you, but I just showed you the interesting ones. No questions. Good, good, good. Okay, let's go ahead and move on then. So I've got those colors, so we'll stick with that. Now, I'm going to get a little canvas. Remember, in the center of all of our color wheels, we mixed all of the colors together, right? And we got a chromatic black of varying degrees. Some of the colors made better chromatic blacks than others. Some made more like really dark browns, like this one, it's almost just kind of brown. Some made a little bit stronger of black. That means when you mix red, yellow, and blue together, it mixes toward black, which means, what am I saying here? Any one of these colors, if you want to darken it, you don't have to reach for black, okay? So let's look at this one. You want to look at the exact opposite color. So here I've got red. If I want to make red that's darker, I actually don't want to mix black into it. I don't even have my black paint over here to demonstrate. Especially Mars Black, it's a little on the blue side, so it will push red toward purple. Well, maybe I don't want to do that. I just want the red to be a little bit darker, but still be red. So the best way to do that is going to be to look directly across from it and add its complementary color. So directly across from red is green. That means if I add a little bit of green, which is blue plus yellow, I'm going to darken red. Likewise, if I want to darken yellow, you don't want to add black. If you add black to yellow, you get green, right? But if we add a little bit of purple, red and blue, it's going to make it darker. So let me demonstrate that in kind of a practical way here for you. We are going to use, I'm going to use my quinacridone phthalo Hansa. And this is the little landscape that I made off of it, okay? Let's say that I really like all of the colors in here. I just wish I had a color that was a little darker in the sky. And I want some darker shadows in the mountains. And maybe I want some darker shadows on the ground here. That's going to be my goal here. I'm not going to try and make this painting look great. It's probably going to look really horrible. So don't judge me. I'm just showing you the colors. Good, yay. I love to look in chat and see you guys say that you're getting it. That makes me happy. Okay, I know on this sky I used yellow and blue for the sky. We're going to start with that, even though I started with the mountains before. So I'm going to get my blue with some yellow. Let's push it a little closer to the blue side, and some white. And I'm going to start kind of scrubbing that in there. Let's get our white. Just work with me, pretend that that's a completed sky, okay? I think you understand how we did this sky last time. So let's say I do that, but I'm like, I just wish it were a little darker right up at the top. Not bluer, because I could add the blue, right? And it would be a little bit darker. But I want to keep this kind of aqua blue color. I don't want to add more phthalo and just push it more blue. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up a bit of that color that I just used. I'm going to grab a tiny point of quinacridone and mix it in there. Maybe I should have cleaned off my brush first. Yeah, I'm going to do that. I'm just going to wipe it off. Yellow and blue. There's that nice dark blue color. I'm going to get some quinacridone. And I'm going to mix it in there and see how it's starting to push that color darker. Look. It fits in there. Now it looks like a darker shade of the same color. Just by adding a tiny hint of quinacridone. Let's see, over here I didn't add any. Let's see what happens if I just darken it a little by adding more blue. Which you certainly can do it. I mean, it just depends on what your ultimate goal is. So I'm going to mix it that same color, but I'm going to put more blue into it than the yellow. It doesn't feel darker. It kind of just looks darker in the camera. It doesn't feel darker, it just looks bluer. Where value-wise, it's about the same value as right here. But this looks darker because I'm trying to think of how to explain this. You guys need to remember that all of this that I'm telling you is just stuff I know from doing it. So there might be technical terms that I could use to explain this to you, but I don't know what they are because I haven't learned them. Let's look at a color wheel so that I can try to explain what it is I'm explaining to you. But also let me jump over here and see if you can see a difference better in... Yeah, kind of. See right here how it looks dark, but right here it just looks bluer. And this is where I just did the blue, and this is where I added the alizarin, or the quinacridone. So, okay. Let's look at our color wheel here, okay? Let's look at a color like yellow. If we want to make the color yellow, what am I saying here? everything's kind of a progression, right? So if we start at yellow and go this way, especially if the transition from color to color is much slower, it's going to seem like it's getting darker, right? As it gets pushed toward its opposite, it seems like it's getting darker on either direction. As it gets pushed that way, it gets darker. And that's really the same with any of them. We can take red, and it seems like, well, it seems like it gets lighter there, but as it comes around, it's just all a progression. And so sometimes to make a color seem darker, you want to push it a little bit closer to the color next to it. So blue can appear a little bit darker if you push it a little more toward purple or a little more toward green. That might be totally confusing. You should probably just ignore everything I just said there, because I have no idea actually what I'm saying. It's something that I think of when I'm painting. But it's not something that I'm finding it easy to explain. No, toning and tinting are totally different things that we're not even talking about today. And we'll go over that maybe next week, maybe the week after. Eileen asked if it was muting, like toning versus tinting. And no, toning and tinting, totally different. Mickey says, so I'm doing a yellow rose. For the shadow of the petal, should I add a little purple in there? Exactly, Mickey, exactly. Yes, to adequately shadow yellow, you want to add a little bit of purple. It makes sense to you? Okay, good, because I confused myself saying it, and I'm like, no, that's actually, so I'm glad it didn't confuse you. Hello, Rhonda. There's no proper mixture. Okay, so I hope, let's jump back over here. So I hope that you see how I was able to take this exact same sky. Look, it's the same color, but if I wanted it deeper, I add a tiny bit of quinacridone. This is where those complex colors start to come in and change our landscape. Now let's add our mountains. And in the mountains, I want to work on finding darker shadows, okay? So my mountains are made of the yellow and the quinacridone. So I'm going to get that. A mixture somewhere in the middle there. I'm going to get a tiny bit of white, just because there's some in my original, and I'm trying to make it as similar as possible. All right. So here's my really horrible looking mountain, okay? Let's just fill it all in. Now, in the sky, because the blue is such a strong color, if I wanted to darken my shadows there, I could just add a little more blue. But if I just add a little more quinacridone here, that doesn't seem any darker. It just seems more quinacridone. So, to make it darker, we're going to take our same mixture, our quinacridone yellow mixture, and because we're using phthalo, we have to be really, really careful. But I'm going to come in here and I'm going to grab the tiniest amount of phthalo that I can. I don't even think you can see. Yeah, just the tiniest bit on the corner there. And I'm going to mix it in here. If I were using like ultramarine, this would be much easier. So there's a little bit of phthalo in there. And now I can get a little bit of some shadows. So Lindsay says it's just hard for me not to not over add the other color to deepen or lighten. I understand that. And you can. I mean, it really depends on what it is that you're going for. But, you know, if that's not an option, like here, I could add more yellow to get a lighter color, but it's also going to make it seem brighter, like maybe there's more direct sunlight. I might not want that, so I might want to add some white. Whereas, you know, again, just adding more quinacridone isn't going to make that seem darker. It's just going to make it seem more quinacridone, brighter. But adding a little bit of blue starts to add some shadow. Good. That's what Lindsay's been looking for. Shadows from the clouds. Exactly. Exactly. Now let's do the ground, okay? Good. I'm so glad you guys are enjoying this and learning. So this ground, and I did kind of cheat because I didn't clean off my brush in between the mountains and the ground. So I do almost have that going on in here. But, you know, in the distance, let's say I really want some deeper colors. But maybe up here to the foreground where it's lighter because it's closer to us, maybe I still want to say there's some shadow. So overall it's lighter here, but I might still want some shadow. So let's do that. So that ground was made with quinacridone and phthalo. And so I'm going to start with that. A little bit of white. Just so it's not, you know, chromatic black. That phthalo's so dark. Okay. Just get some of that in there. And it is going to kind of start blending with that mountain already, so I'm getting a bit of that effect already. But okay. One thing real quick, guys, while I do this, I don't want you guys to worry about how am I going to remember. How am I going to memorize all this? I'm not going to remember any of this stuff when I go to paint next time. That's okay. I don't want you to try and memorize it. This isn't history class where you have to memorize all of the dates so that you can pass the test. You will recall this information when you need it. And maybe you won't. Maybe you won't. But you know what you will do is it will accidentally happen. One time you'll be painting along and you're like, why does that look like there's a shadow there all of a sudden? It's because I didn't clean off my brush or I accidentally picked up all three colors. That's right. Jane said to add this other color and then you can start to kind of create a shadow just by adding the three colors. And as you just start to use that information, it will start to sink in, okay? Yes, you will recall it faster the more that you use it. Okay, so there's my ground. It's just the purple and it's just the blue and the quinacridone with the white. Let's get some shadows. Let's make this back here as dark as we can, okay? I just wiped off my brush. I'm gonna get that quinacridone blue again. And some yellow. I'm gonna start mixing some yellow in there. See how dark that is? Look, doesn't that look like shadows right back there? And because I pull it forward and it's blending in with this area that's wet, so it's picking up that white. It's not a chromatic black. I'm even going to pick up some white. But because that color has changed a little bit, it's going to start seeming like there's some, maybe there's a little bit of a shadow there. Anyway, I kind of lost it there because my brush is super muddy because I'm not putting time and attention into this like I would if I were actually painting it, but I think you can see how making a bit more of a complex color helps us create shadows in there. So let me clean off my brush. And we'll look at these side by side and just see if you can tell how deepening the colors brings a little bit more realism into it. And as you want to try and get more realistic and more realistic, you just start really making your color mixtures more complex. Really push and make sure that every single brush load has all three of those colors on it, and you're going to start getting some more of those muted, more complex colors that will, in fact, where's the one I did with that one? So, you know, if I really started pushing and pulling those colors, this is much more of a realistic kind of sandstone-y color than what I've got going in there. It's just a different mixture of all of those exact same colors. You know, same with the sky, and, you know, with the purples on the ground. You know, if I used this mixture, for example, it could seem like kind of a sandstone ground just in shadow, where this bright purple was like, is that flowers? Is it just weird? Who knows? So, there was something else I was thinking I was going to talk about today, but I think I might wait. And we'll do that when we, like Eileen was asking about tones and tints, we'll talk about that the same time then. So tell me what, we've only been going for an hour, you guys. It feels like it's been longer than that. So tell me what other questions you have with regards to what we've done today. What do you maybe not understand? What do you need a little more clarification on? Do you need a demo on something else? What else do you want to know with regards to this? Yeah, Mickey, that's kind of what Mickey asked if I would talk about cool versus warm, and I'm not going to today. That's going to be something that we'll talk about when we do the tone and tint talk that Eileen brought up. Because that's really, it's a whole nother topic. In fact, we can probably go over that next week. Do we want to go over that next week? No, you know what? Let's do it right now. Okay. We'll do it right now. Okay, so cool and warm. I need you guys to understand something real quick about cool and warm colors, all right? Some of you might need to write this down. Whether a color is cool or warm is completely relative. It's completely relative, okay? You cannot take phthalo blue and say, phthalo blue is cool. What's it cooler than? Cooler than what? It's only cool relative to other blues, right? But there's other blues that are going to be way cooler than phthalo blue. And in those two colors, phthalo blue is going to be considered warm because it's warm relative to the other color, okay? Do not let that make your head explode. All right, I'm going to show you exactly what I mean there, okay? Oh, is Lori leaving? Bye, Lori. Thanks for hanging out. Whether a color is cool or warm is a topic that gets a lot of people's heads spinning, and I do not want it to make your head spin, okay? Just remember, it's relative. You do not have to memorize, this one's cool, this one's warm, you know. And I'm going to show you a trick to determine whether one is cool or warm for your purposes. But remember when I said that phthalo is a cool blue? I mean, it says right on there, green shade. Green should tell you that it's, blue's a hard one. I don't even want to get into that with blue. So let me make your head explode. I'm going to tell you one thing and then we're going to move on, because if you guys start asking me all these questions about blue, then everybody's head is going to explode. There is argument in the art world whether or not blue is a cool or a warm color. I know we see it and we're like, it's cool. Okay, but is green cool? Or is, is a green shade blue cool? Or is a violet shade blue cool? Because you have to add yellow to get green. Yellow's warm. You have to add red to get violet. Red's warm. So which is which? So let's not get into a big conversation about that. So here is a little bit of a blue. I will tell you what blue it is in just a moment. And here is a little bit of phthalo blue. Oh, and here's a little bit of ultramarine blue. 3 different blues. Let's get some water. This is turquoise deep. Okay. This is phthalo. And this is ultramarine. All right. Now, some people have an easier time seeing this. Some of you may be looking at this going, I have no idea which one is cooler or warmer, and that's okay. But if you are a little bit more practiced at it, you would immediately see, oh, this color is like, that's a green blue. That blue has a lot of green in it. This blue has a lot of red in it. It's very, very warm, very, very cool. Phthalo blue looks kind of middle of the road here. But if you're just looking at it in relation to ultramarine, it's quite green. So that's what I mean about it's relative to whatever else it's with. Now, how do you decide? How do you decide if you look at it and you're just like, I can't tell. I have no idea which one of these is warmer or cooler. Let's do an experiment. I'm going to take a yellow that I know is bright and vivid, and it's not warm, it's not orangey, it's not green, it's just yellow. And that's my yellow light Hansa. It's just a very yellow color. I'm going to take some phthalo blue. I'm going to take some turquoise deep. Now what I'm doing here is, if there's no red present in any of these blues, then I should get a bright, vibrant green, right? If one of these blues has red present in it, I won't get a bright, vibrant green, because red is the opposite of blue. Or I'm sorry, red is the opposite of green, right? Come on. Right? Red is the opposite of green. So if there's green present in the blue, I will not, oh man, I'm making myself go in circles. If there's red present in the blue, I won't get a good green. So let's start with the yellow and the turquoise deep. So I'm going to pull out some of the yellow and the turquoise deep, and I get a pretty bright green. So that tells me that turquoise deep, this must be a pretty cool color. It has a lot of green in it. Let's look at it with phthalo. Again, a bright, vibrant green. So phthalo has a lot of green to it already. It's not a warm color. Let's look at it with ultramarine. I mean, ultramarine is bright and vivid, right? So we should get a bright, vivid green. Look at that. Where's my bright, vivid green? How come that bright, vivid blue and that bright, vivid yellow just gave me a muddy, washed out color that is, it's almost not even green. That should tell you right there that ultramarine has a lot of red in it. It's a very warm color, very, very warm. So you can kind of do this exercise to determine which is which. You know, if you're having a hard time telling the difference between colors, like if it's blue, mix some yellow into it. The one that doesn't turn green, you know is a warm blue. Likewise, we can do that with purple. Let's say we have red, and we don't know which red is vivid. So I'm going to use some ultramarine because ultramarine is very red. So we should be able to get some good purples out of it, right? But let's do the same thing we did here. I've got some alizarin. Oh, not that much alizarin. Come on. Yeah, they do. Pat asked what happened with the ultramarine green hue. I don't have any of it, so I can't demonstrate that for you. They do make an ultramarine green hue, which I think is weird because ultramarine is a red hue blue, but they also make a phthalo, a red shade phthalo, which I don't understand. Okay, so I have alizarin, quinacridone, and naphthol crimson. And let's look at these colors. We're going to smear our alizarin down. That's a nice color, huh? Is it warm or is it cool? By itself, it's just alizarin. Let's pull down some quinacridone. Is it warm or is it cool? Well, next to the alizarin, it looks pretty cool, doesn't it? It almost looks like it's starting to become violet. Let's pull down the naphthol. And next to the naphthol, they all look cool, right? Alizarin looks very, very cool. That naphthol is very warm, very vibrant. Let's mix them with the blue and see what happens. Which one? Get your bets in right now, guys. Which red is going to give us the brightest purple and which red is going to give us the most washed out purple? There's my naphthol. Nice bright red, nice bright blue. We should get a good purple. There's my alizarin. That's kind of a dark bloody red. We might not get such a good purple, huh? And quinacridone. Okay, guys, what are your bets? What's going to be the best purple? What's going to be the worst purple? Alizarin will be washed out. Okay, let's do it. Let's start with alizarin since that one got a vote. Alizarin and ultramarine. It's a little washed out. Guys, why would that be? I'm going to let you think about this one for a minute. If alizarin it's fairly cool. We already know ultramarine is cool. Why did I get kind of this dusty, washed out purple? You think about that for a minute. Let's do quinacridone. Quinacridone and ultramarine. Very nice. Look at that. A nice dark but vivid purple. Lindsay guesses that alizarin has some yellow in it. Okay, let's look at our naphthol and ultramarine. Not even a hint of purple. We pretty much push it to chromatic black. So let's discuss all three of those. So Lindsay guessed that alizarin has some yellow to it. It is a cool red, as we can see here, but it's also much more complex. It has some yellow in it. Alizarin is kind of like the colors that we make here, you know? It's red, but then it's got a little bit of blue and a little bit of yellow in it. So it's a bit more muted. And while the blue helps us get a little bit of a purple, the yellow prevents it from getting bright. Quinacridone, we know quinacridone is quite blue. So we get a good purple there. The quinacridone has a lot of blue to it. The ultramarine has a lot of red to it. So we have just like straight red and blue mixing there. So we get purple. The naphthol, it's very vivid. It looks like a very primary red, but it has a lot of yellow in it. Yes, it's got a yellow bias. And so when we're trying to mix purple, that naphthol is bringing, well, let's see, purple would really be right here. That naphthol is bringing yellow to the table, which mutes this down. And that's really the same thing with the alizarin. It's bringing a little bit of yellow to the table. But the quinacridone and the blue, they both exist right here. So they're just going to make a nice bright blue. Yeah, so Debbie said that she does have a hard time deciding if a color is warm or cool. But like I showed you here, whether the color is warm or cool, it's really relative. But if you really need to know, mix it to see if you can get those pure secondary colors. I mean, we just got straight up mud here with a bright, bright blue and a bright, bright yellow, and you mix them together and they went. But so that's a good way to be able to tell. Somebody's lost. Who's lost? Did I lose anybody? Do you guys understand this? Another thing is, you know, like I said, it's a relative thing. You can have purple and blue laying down right next to each other, and one's going to seem very cold and one's going to seem very warm, but then you put down maybe green or something next to one of them, and that's going to change. So, yeah, just remember that it's relative. And the more you start to focus on that and think about it as you're painting, the more you'll start to see that. And the more you start to see it and pay attention to it, the more it will click and you'll automatically start doing those things. You'll know, you know, oh, I want to make this look like it's in shadow, and so I need to go a little bit cooler. And how am I going to make this color cooler? What am I going to do to cool it off, or, you know, warm it up, or whatever it is that you need to do to it. Oh, yeah, it's a lot to take in. I understand that. And like I said, it can be very easy to get lost in all of this information. And so please remember, guys, just like I said last week, I do not want you to try and memorize all of this. You do not need to memorize all of this. it's enough to be exposed to the information. That's really, just be exposed to it, because that will open up your eyes. I mean, how many of you have grabbed ultramarine blue and yellow thinking you were going to make green, and you were like, what just happened? And you had no idea why it didn't make green. Now you've got some understanding of that. And the next time you grab a color that you think is going to make a certain color and it doesn't, now you can go, okay, why? And you've got the tools to start being able to analyze that, and how to grab all your colors and decide, oh, okay, this one's cooler, so this is going to make a better green, or, you know, whatever it is that you're looking for. Get what you get out of this. If something clicks with you, latch onto that and focus on that in your practices. If there's a concept that I've touched on here that you're just like, I have no idea what she was even talking about there, that's fine. Let it go. Just let it go over your head. Because I promise, like I said, all of this is stuff that I've just learned along the way, you know, maybe from reading a book, but mostly from my own experimenting, from making mistakes, from grabbing ultramarine thinking I was going to get a gorgeous, vivid green. So if I can learn all of this just from experience, you guys can pick this up. You don't have to worry about trying to retain every bit of information I just barfed all over the place for the last 2 weeks. Yes, Jennifer says, that's a perfect way to put it, Jennifer. The more all three colors are present, the more muted the mixed color is going to be, and it will start edging toward chromatic black. Exactly. Exactly, exactly, exactly. Deb's battle cries, just out of curiosity. Yes, that's what I want you all to do. Because legit, you guys, are there any ugly colors? I mean, you may be drawn to some of the colors more than others, but can you think of a situation where you would absolutely be like, I would never use that color for anything? I would use every single one of these colors for something. You know, out of all of these that I made, I mean, look at these. This is just haphazard mud that I was mixing. But every one of these colors, if used in the right context, is a gorgeous color, and it could be absolutely the color that you're looking for. So there's no reason to be afraid or be like, oh, that color's ugly, or, you know, whatever. Just enjoy it and slap those colors together and find out what happens. Good. I'm glad that this made some amount of sense. Experiment more. Yes, and really think about what happened and why. Exactly. So that's how you're going to learn the most. If you guys slap some, let's say I'm harping on this ultramarine and yellow. You slap those together and you're like, ew, that's ugly. Move on. Guess I screwed that one up and that's it. Then you did make a mistake and you might have wasted your time. But if you slap that blue and yellow together and you're like, ugh, that's not what I expected. Why did that happen? And then you start picking it apart and thinking about it and trying to figure out, well, what would happen if I mixed this yellow with ultramarine? Or what would happen if I mixed this blue with that yellow? Now you've started to gain some understanding, and you didn't waste your time because you did, you know, figure something out. I want to look at something here. I wonder if I have a cooler yellow. Oh, that one's warmer. I was going to say, if I had a cooler yellow that pushed just a little bit toward green, I bet I could get more of a vibrant green. I would just need a yellow that brought a little extra blue to the table to try and counteract the red of the ultramarine. But yeah, so that's why I always tell you guys there's no mistakes. You know, use use mistakes or things that you didn't want to happen as opportunities to learn something new. There's always something new to learn. But if you just throw up your hands and go, oh, I messed that up, then yeah, that sucks. And you didn't learn anything. So learn something. Be excited about mistakes, because that's where you learn. That's where you learn these kind of things. Yeah, exactly, Eileen. She also said that, you know, not only are these colors not ugly, but they're harmonious with every other color on this page. I could really close my eyes and at random pick 2 colors, 5 colors, 3 colors, whatever, and they would all work really well together in a painting because they're all made from the exact same. You can think of them like the exact same family. They're all in the exact same family, so they all get along and they all look like each other and they all work well together. But you know, maybe if I took like one color from here, let's say I took this color and I paired it with this color, and then maybe we had some of this color and that color. That might start to look a little scary, but they're not in the same color family. Debbie, yeah, we'll talk about that next week. So she asked, isn't it the theory that cool colors recede and warm colors advance? Yes, and that's more, I do have like a whole demonstration thing that I want to do on that, but I felt like I wanted to show you this right now so that maybe you can start focusing on that. And next week, when we talk about that a little bit more in depth, you'll already kind of have that grasped a bit so that we can start working on kind of bringing that information to the table. Good. I'm really glad that you guys have enjoyed this and that you feel like you've been learning something. Sometimes I tend to just be like, you know, talk. Here's everything I know. And meanwhile, you're sitting there going, I have no idea what she's saying. So I'm glad that we didn't do that here today. So I want you guys to play this week. You know, do a bunch of things like this. Start with the color wheels that you made last week, and then, you know, if you get through those, make some new ones and move on into these. If you want to start working on kind of experimenting with those landscape ideas, I don't even know where those little landscapes, oh, they're right here. You know how I started kind of darkening areas by making the colors a little bit more complex? Go ahead and do that. Then I want you to go through your reds, blues, and yellows and maybe do some little experiments like this. And in the next day or so, well, probably in the next couple of days, I will get you an event for next Saturday. We'll probably do it later in the day. And we'll go over, yeah, some more new stuff. And if you guys are still enjoying this at the end of August and we still have more to go through, would you want to take our color theory classes into September? Is that something you would be interested in doing? Mickey asks if an underpainting influences warm versus cool. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. Good. All right, guys. Go do your homework and keep posting them. Make sure you post on Instagram too and use our Patreonster hashtag. Because I was bragging about you guys and then I went and looked and I'm like, oh, like 2 people have posted their color wheels on Instagram. So go post some stuff and let's show everybody how much fun we're having. Yay. All right, everybody, I love you to death and I will see you next week. Whoa, I turned myself off there.